Hey everyone from Mr. Cruz's History 138 class. This is Lauren Gomez, and I'm going to talk today about Adolf Hitler from his birth through World War I. So, Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th in 1889 in Austria, near the border of German Bavaria. From his extensive history as an adult in Germany, it seems like he was German, but in fact, he was born and raised in Austria. So Hitler was born to Alois and Clara Hitler. Alois was born in 1837. His mother was Maria Schicklgruber, and it's unknown exactly who his father really was. Years later, when he was an adult, he took a variation of his stepfather's last name, which was Heidler. If he ended up keeping the maiden name of his mother and passed that down to Adolf, it's kind of hard to imagine later on the German supporters chanting something like Heil Schicklgruber. It doesn't really flow so well. So anyway, Alois had married a total of 3 times in his life. 2 children he had before were Alois Jr. and Angela, before he ended up marrying Clara, who was Adolf's mother. So Adolf's mother, Clara, was 23 years younger than his father, Alois. Already happened to be pregnant when they got married. Clara was actually the second cousin, once removed, of Alois. They did have to receive special permission from the church to get married. Clara had 3 children before Adolf, all who ended up dying. So Adolf was Clara's 4th child. He was born healthy. At that time, Alois's father was now 52 years old. Since Clara had lost numerous babies before Adolf, she did lavish him with a lot of affection. I'm sure she had fear of losing him too. Certainly, if I were in her shoes, it seemed, like none of my children were surviving. I think I would have overly coddled my child and semi-smothered him with affection. Give him any want or need. However, when Adolf was almost 5, in 1893, he did receive a brother. His name was Edmund. And in 1896, a sister. Her name was Paula. All right. So Hitler's family moved several times during his childhood. It all kind of depended on where his father, who was a civil servant, had his most current job. The town, I think that is known as his hometown, was Linz. The family moved there in 1898 when Hitler was around 9 years old. But back when Hitler was the age of 6, he did start school, and around that time, his father had also retired. So his father was very strict, very harsh towards his boys. Adolf had also, started receiving new rules from his teachers that he was not used to abiding from. His mother didn't give him a lot of rules. When his older half-brother, Alois Jr., was 14, he ran away from home and he never returned. He was tired of the harsh treatment his father was, giving them. This now put Adolf at the brunt of his father's aggressions. Soon after, Adolf's younger brother, Edmund, passed away from the measles when he was the age of 6. This was Hitler's first real experience with death. And as an adolescent, Hitler really dreamed of studying art, and he tried to get his father to agree to send him to an art school. Hitler's father never supported this idea. He enrolled him in a technical school, because he really wanted Adolf to follow in his footsteps of becoming a custom service person. Hitler hated that school. He was known for being very mischievous. He was very disinterested. He got extremely bad grades. However, in January of 1903, Hitler's father suddenly died. This left 13-year-old Adolf as the head of the household. He was finally freed from his domineering father. When he was 16, after years of receiving such bad grades, he left his technical school. He never graduated, and he never returned back. So in October of 1907, Hitler applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. He had dreams and aspirations of becoming a great artist. However, he was denied acceptance. This was a great rejection, and it badly shook Hitler. After his rejection from the academy, Hitler returned back to his hometown. His mother, Clara, was actually dying at this time from breast cancer. She was diagnosed earlier in 1907. It was already at an advanced stage. She had undergone surgery, numerous treatments. However, she did pass away later on in 1907 in December. Hitler was by her side. Her treating doctor, his name was Edward Bloch, who was also a Jewish man, stated he had never seen anyone so overcome with grief as Hitler was when his mother passed away. So I'm going to recap a little bit. Hitler has gone through a lot in his life at this point. A lot of harsh and cruel treatment from his father as a young boy. Now the loss of both of his parents and a younger sibling. Great rejection from the art school, what he, crushed his great passion for art, what he's dreamed of his whole life. I'd say this is enough trauma to affect anyone's psyche at this point. But now, both of his parents are gone. Hitler's not even 19 years old. He did move back to Vienna. And for a second time, he did apply to the Art Academy, but he was also denied a second time. Hitler wasn't working. He refused to get a job. He was mostly living on inheritance he had received from his parents. With no income to replace that money, it soon ran out. He would be sleeping on park benches, eating at soup kitchens. He eventually was starting to sell some of his paintings to earn money. And in Vienna, he was about the age of 21, he started becoming interested in the politics in and around that area. The mayor at the time's name was Karl Lueger. He was a noted anti-Semite, and Hitler really admired Lueger and modeled some of his later behavior on what he learned from Lueger at that time. Some years later, at the age of 24, Hitler actually left Vienna to avoid mandatory military service for the Austrian army. Ironically enough, at the age of 25, Hitler enlisted in the German army. Throughout World War I, Hitler happened to have great luck actually avoiding injury. He was promoted to a corporal ranking and was tasked as a dispatch runner, where he took messages back and forth from the command staff in the rear to the fighting units near the battlefield. During the war, Hitler saw Jews as the leaders of the anti-war conspiracy and saw them as the cause for spreading anti-war sentiment among the German civilians. This added to the anti-Semitic notion that he had already acquired while living in Vienna and led to an ever-growing hatred of the Jews. Although he received 5 medals, including an Iron Cross First Class, Hitler never really moved up from a corporal ranking. Near the end of the war, he was temporarily blinded by a gas attack and was hospitalized. While he was in the hospital, this is where he heard of Germany's fall and loss of the war. And I want to read you an excerpt from his book Mein Kampf regarding his feelings after Germany's fall. There followed terrible days and even worse nights. I knew that all was lost. In these nights, hatred grew in me. Hatred for those responsible for this deed. The people Hitler blamed for Germany's loss was not the military, but the politicians, especially the Jews. All right. So, following the end of the war, Hitler was still employed by the German military as an informant. While in this role, he had his first experience with the German Workers' Party. Later it was known as the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party. So this is my end of my discussion for Hitler through World War I. Certainly we all know that there's more to come. If there's any questions, please feel free to send me a message through Edmodo. And that's it.